you couldn't hear it in the house. So Lib would be screaming at Billy. He goes, "Duck lips." He goes, "You look like an asshole." He goes, whatever. And he'd try to make him laugh, and he'd be screaming at him every day.
The years you played with Billy, I mean, what were your highlights and personal favorite moments?
It's funny that there were some nights, like, playing the Garden was always a blast because, New York and its hometown and that place. The Garden, the lighting truss would actually shift because the crowd was going so wild and stuff. One night, Paul Simon was playing in the Felt Forum underneath us in the smaller theater.
Oh, really?
And he said we ruined his show because the lighting truss in his show was going, rocking back and forth as they were going nuts in ours. But Garden was always fun. I loved going to Australia. It was always fun going to Japan because the people were so receptive. But I guess the highlight was when we played Russia. And that was really the last tour that I was on. But it was just so interesting, and I had my family with me. My son and my wife were there, and it was just the oddest feeling because it changed so many different perceptions that you had. They were the enemy, they were this, they were that.
Yeah.
And you go there, and they, would give you the shirt off their back. The people were wonderful. The party people, the politicians and the party people and the military guys that were around, they were assholes. But except for a couple that we met. One, I had a story where one guy gave me his army hat because I slipped a cassette in those days of something we were talking about music, and they weren't even allowed to really interact with us. And I said, "Well, who are your favorite artists?" And he goes, "Dylan and Mark Knopfler." I said, "You're not going to believe this, but I just bought an album, the two of them, called Infidels, that they play on it, and it's great." I said, "Guess what? I have it in my room. Just stand there, don't make it, don't say anything. I'll stick it in your pocket." The guy freaked out. I said, "Come on, I can go back. This is not a big deal. I can go back and get this again for nothing, but this will really interest you. Just stay there." I put it in his pocket, and he started crying. He was freaking out. This is an army guy. Wait, check this out. And he goes, "I will never forget you for that." And he gave me.
Oh, really?
Cool. Hat. How cool is that?
Wow.
Yeah.
That's really cool. So how about your funniest moments?
At one point, we opened up with The Stranger. It had just come out. And on stage, the monitor mix is different than the house mix. So the lights would go out, and Billy would play the intro and a little pin spot on Billy's hands. And when he'd have to whistle, he'd lean in and he'd half close his eyes, and he'd lean into the microphone and pucker up to whistle. Now, Liv would try to make him laugh. And so on stage, we could hear it, but you couldn't hear it in the house. So Liv would be screaming at Billy. He goes, "Duck lips." He goes, "You look like an asshole." He goes, whatever. And he'd try to make him laugh, and he'd be screaming at him every day. But Billy would, pucker up with duck lips and whatever. He'd make fun of Billy. So this would go on every night. So then finally I said, "Liv, not tonight. Don't say anything. I'm going to get him." And my roadie went out and got me Blackjack chewing gum, which is like a licorice chewing gum. And the way we were on stage is the line of sight. I stood next to Billy in front of the drum riser. And when Billy would start to whistle, he would look at Liv and would, and then we'd all come in together and Liv would start. So now Billy's doing it. There's no Liv screaming at him on stage. And as he's about to pucker up and go into the mic to listen, his eyes would pass me to go to Liv. And I had my front teeth blacked out with the black, and I smiled at him. And he looks at me, and all you hear through the house really loud in the mic is, "Get that shit off your teeth." And everybody's high-fiving me. We got him, ruined the song. So hilarious. They'll be, so we're all dying that we got Liberty. So next show, it got so bad that he couldn't play the song anymore. So we dropped The Stranger. We're promoting The Stranger, but he couldn't do it without laughing.
What are your favorite songs that you've played on all those albums?
I don't know. It's funny, now that we're with the Lords, like I always loved Say Goodbye to Hollywood. It just sounded like an old Ronette song or something. Yeah. It just, it was really powerful. Some of the ones that would get to me maybe not the most dynamic songs. Like playing Goodnight Saigon live was very powerful. I used to love to do Until the Night because I got to sing with them. We hardly ever played this song, but we did I've Loved These Days, which is one of the Turnstiles songs. And when the Lords played it, it just reminded us how, you know, just the dynamics of it were so powerful. I said, wow, this just feels so good. It felt just like the old days. So that, you know, was a lot of fun to play. But songs that I didn't love back then, I'm really enjoying playing with the Lords. Like I'm rediscovering some of these things. And then there were a couple of songs that we didn't play on that were after my time. I said, oh, I wish I played on that one, you know? So it's like, I would have loved to have played on I Go to Extremes. But, you know, which I like the record, but and we do it in our set too sometimes. And I always loved the songs that Billy did that, you know, sometimes Billy can be a chameleon where he writes, like who could write a Ray Charles song and actually get to play it with Ray Charles? Like, you know, Baby Grand was amazing, but he'll kind of morph into Ray Charles, and he'll, you know, it's almost like doing an imitation of him. And I like the songs where it feels like the guy that I know, that where it feels like Billy. Not that there's anything wrong with Baby Grand, don't get me wrong, it's a great song. Me, Vienna really reminds me of Billy. She's Always a Woman sounds like a Billy song. It sounds like him. She's Got Away sounds like Billy. You know, the person Billy. The ones where I feel the most direct connection, where I say resonates to me, there's a bunch of them like that. Goodnight Saigon, you know, when I heard that in the studio, it was like, oh my God.
But in 2014, you, Liberty, and Doug were inducted into the Long Island Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2014. And that was the first, tell me how that experience happened.
It kind of happened by accident. I think the guys get mad at me when I say this, but, you know, I had kind of turned the page and reinvented myself. I moved overseas for many years, but to me, I'm not like those guys. Lip is a great musician, a great session player. Richie can play with anybody. To me, I didn't want to play in another band, you know, without these guys. Like, I'm different than they were. So I didn't even want to do the Hall of Fame thing. Doug's mom called me when she heard I didn't want to do it. You know, not that I didn't want to do it. I didn't really care. I didn't think anything of it. And boy, am I glad she talked me out of that. And Andy Gilmartin, our manager, who really was the one that got this thing going, along with Billy's ex-wife, Elizabeth. It took me a little while to get my chops back, you know, a little bit. But what was undeniable is that the chemistry was always there. And then Delsner got inducted the same night that we did, and everybody went nuts when they heard us playing. It was like, oh my God. I said, wow, you know, I mean, I was saying, I didn't think anybody gave a damn about us anymore. I figured, you know, Billy's new band's been with him longer than we were. I mean, even though we're the ones on the records, because people really do care. I was amazed at how much people care.
They do. I mean, especially musicians, you know, I mean, you know, they know what the real stuff is. You guys were the real thing.
Liv says he may be the father of those songs, but we're at least the uncles.
It's really good.
Yeah. And you know what? And everybody's playing better than they ever played. I mean, it's like, we're having fun.
It's really great though. You know, I mean, now you guys were appreciated. You know, that's a plus.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, no doubt.